Listen to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
How are y'all doing today? Another great day here in Johnson County. So, how are you doing today, Taylor? You doing all right? More or less?
More or less, I am doing fantastic.
More or less, you're doing fantastic. How's things going over at Local Legends?
They're going awesome.
Well,
Always buying new toys to make sure your shows look the best.
Yeah, well, that's the important thing, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
You can't do good unless you look good. But anyway, I'm digress. Today we're going to talk about educational options part 2. Yesterday we talked about the differences in public and private schools I've experienced and what I could tell and whatever else. As far as today, we're going to talk about homeschooling and charter schools primarily. And for my peers, these are pretty controversial topics, to say the least. Uh, I had a couple of people responded to yesterday's show about education and things of that nature, and it's the thing about it is that I didn't want to imply anything other than the teachers that I worked with at BHS, for the most part. I mean, for the very most part, were outstanding. Were very good. But I had people say, "Well, what about teachers that aren't that good, or they're not doing the job, or whatever else?" That's a different topic. But I could tell you right now, they never lasted that long, at least not in my experience. And most of the teachers I worked with at BHS were genuinely dedicated public servants. Now, I was also asked by a close relative about, does more money equal better performance? And I'm going to address that issue towards the end of it. Okay, because a lot of people, they don't see the connection between money and performance or quality, and I'm going to try to just address that point at the very end of the show. So hang on for that. But before we drop into all these hot topics, let's talk about our sponsors. Thank you to Daniel at CrossFit Burleson, CrossFitBurleson.com. Check out the webpage for the website, for the plans, for the programs, for the memberships, whatnot. They got some specials running right now for the spring coming up. So check out CrossFit Burleson. You want to look good for your Valentine, certainly. So CrossFitBurleson.com. Also Shandy at Shandy Stocksdill Realty Group, the turning transactions into relationships, and also with her 817life.com page. That's very entertaining to me because it talks about a lot of things going on in the Burleson, Johnson County area, more or less, and around this whole area. So it's really very informative. But thank you, Shandy, for that service. But also, if you're looking to move in and around the Burleson area, she's the one to talk to. So thank you for that. Thank you to Rex over at Cleburne, at the Rex Russell Wealth Group. Hit myfinancialbox.com and he'll show you the introductory video and you'll get to know him. He'll help you with your 401k, your IRA, and anything else that ends in an A. And so he can help you with your retirement plans and other savings plans and help you guide through this turbulent stock market. I was talking with a couple of people yesterday, and they're basically watching the ride, and it's up and down, up and down. You need somebody like Rex to hold your hand sometimes. So myfinancialbox.com. Also, thank you to Kimmy over at Kimmy Etheridge at Optavia, 817-789-1622. It's not just a diet, it's a health maintenance plan. Help take the weight off, help keep it off, help you with the healthier eating habits, lifestyle habits. So Optavia, 817-789-1622. And Gayla Moore's over at Southern Gem with fine jewelry and gemstones on the 3rd floor of the Windmiller Building off of Hidden Creek. It's Valentine's Day next Monday, and you can buy your sweetie some jewelry or have it repaired or have it designed or appraised, any of the things. It's a full service jeweler. So Southern Gem is the place to go for your Valentine's gifts. Okay, so let's talk about briefly a little about yesterday and whatnot. The podcast from yesterday, options part 1, will be up probably by the time this show is over on Spotify and Apple. And yes, and I'm staying on Spotify, dadgummit. I don't even know who Joe Rogan is half the time. Taylor, you know what's going on with that Joe Rogan thing?
Yeah, so basically people don't like that he's talking about the vaccine, and they're going to throw a little fit and try to pull their stuff off.
Yeah, well, like Neil Young,
Essentially.
and and a lot of people, like, I mentioned this, Neil Young's taking his music off, and they're like, "Who's Neil Young?" That's my generation.
Yeah, who is Neil Young? Never heard of him.
You really haven't never heard of
It's
Neil
a
Young?
joke. I'm joking.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, my gosh, do you live in a cave? But anyway,
I do live in a cave.
yes,
Just like Alex Jones.
that's a name I don't need to hear. All right. No, no, no. Anyway, the point is that on yesterday's show we talked about the differences between private and public education. A couple things I would remind you of. We have, as a society, almost assumed that private means better than public, and that's not always the case. It quite often is not the case. Private quality education does vary quite a bit between the high-ranking, elite, very, very expensive schools and these other schools that basically are not doing the job because there's really no accountability to it, and their focus isn't strictly on academic performance, but on some other aspect, okay, of the kid's life or whatnot. And the point I'm making with that is that we should not assume that private education is necessarily the cure-all to everything. However, I wanna make this point clear also, there are some things in private school I wish the public schools would adopt, such as smaller classes, for one thing. I've been talking about that for quite a bit. I would like for them to, adopt more accountable discipline performance, more accountable discipline, behavior of students. And one other thing, I really didn't get into that much, but private school teachers don't have the tenure type protections that a public school teacher does. And I'm not saying we need to get rid of tenure and all this, but I am saying that we need to make our public school teachers more accountable. In Texas, it's less difficult to remove a poor teacher from the classroom, but it ain't easy. And in many other states, it's impossible. Performance has nothing to do with their continued presence in the classroom, and I think that needs to stop. And we need to adopt a system where the teachers are held more accountable. Now, again, I'll address this more at the end because how do you do that fairly and how you do that appropriately? Because it isn't as simple as it sounds. But the point is that one of the things I would adopt if I were able to do so is that the accountability measures would increase not just for the students but also for the teachers as well. And most of the teachers I know would say the same thing. Teachers and cops have one thing in common. They recognize their own. And when they see one that's not performing or bringing down the profession or bringing down the institution they work for, they have a real hard feeling about that. I've never met a cop that did not have anything but contempt for bad cops. Same thing with teachers. Most of the good teachers I know have very little respect for those teachers that just show up and punch a clock because they know how hard they're working, and so they want to know that everybody's pulling their weight. So I would increase the accountability on both sides of the equation. But I mean, you can't have one without the other. You can't have increased accountability on the teachers without increasing accountability on the students or the parents. And that's the white elephant in the room, so to speak. The elephant in the room is that we never address the responsibilities that parents have in the school situation. Now, the private school, that's less of a factor by far because, of course, you're paying all this money, and part of the commitment to these schools is that parents will be there. When I had open house at Southwest Christian, it was a pretty full house. And most of these parents, because their own money was in it, they were going to be a bit more attentive to their kids' grades. And they also were very good, most of them anyway, were very good about making their kids accountable. If I sent home an email saying little Johnny didn't get his homework done, what's the problem? I would have it the next day and with probably some, explanation, if you will, about why it wasn't on time or whatnot. Or if I said, your kid really muffed it on this test, and I sent an email home to the parents, then there'd be some accountability on the students as well. I mean, they'd ask me questions about, what should be done and all this other stuff, but they would make sure their kids were taken care of. And I wish that kind of accountability was placed upon the parents more. So that's what the politicians don't talk about. They want to lay everything at the feet of the teachers and omit talk about the responsibility of the parents because it doesn't get you votes and it makes people resent that. But the 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 whole key to making public education work better is going to be accountability. Okay, it's going to be not just show up and sit in a seat and not commit a felony in the presence of another. You need to be accountable. Now, anyway, I digress quite a bit, but I wanted to kind of address those issues point blank. That if anybody takes from what I said yesterday, that I don't think public school teachers are doing the job, then they're totally and completely erroneous because not just because I did it for so long, but I saw other people doing it for so long, and they really did put their hearts into it, and they really did show up, and they really did work hard at it. And it's a it's a noble profession, but it doesn't mean everybody in it is doing the job at the same level of expertise and accountability. That's kind of where I was getting at. Anyway, we're talking about charter schools. A lot of my public school friends don't like charter schools because basically it has the kind of a hybrid, if you will, of what I'm talking about between public and private, because it's not a private school. It is paid for with public funds, but they are exempt from many of the restrictions and requirements that are placed upon public schools. And so my peers kind of look at it with a great deal of a jaundiced eye, shall we say, because they think that they're getting the benefit of the private school with the benefit of the public school in terms of financing or whatever else, and that's not really the case. The problem with charter schools, if there is one, is that like private schools, the quality varies quite a bit, and for people to start charter schools, you don't have to have an educational background, and it doesn't have to be populated with educational experts. In some of these charter schools, yeah, they're kind of rinky dink, if you will. They run out of back of a building or whatever else, and or they have other functions. Like one of the most notorious was Deion Sanders Prime Prep, where basically it was a charter school that was built around athletics, absolutely. And then the kids would come in for like 3 or 4 hours of online rote education. They weren't receiving instruction from a teacher. They were basically sitting at a computer for 3 hours, and then they would go play basketball or football for 5 hours. And that's no joke. That's one of the reasons why the state of Texas came in and shut down Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy a few years ago, because they weren't educating kids. They were basically grooming kids for college athletics and beyond. And this is not something just in Texas. This is going on in other places where you have these privatized or private styled institutions of charter type schools that are focused on other things besides academics. Now, that being said, that is in the minority. Most of the charter schools I know of serve distinct populations that need to be served. All right. What I'm mean is that many times the things I was talking about yesterday in private school, the types of kids that are getting overlooked sometimes are dealt with better in the charter schools. Kids with maybe emotional difficulties or learning difficulties or economic situations. You could have schools in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, charter schools that focus on young Black men, because young Black men have the highest risk of dropping out of school. And so you can create a charter that would focus on these gentlemen, that would not only give them a better education, but also help them adjust better to adult life. There's a couple I know of in Fort Worth and in Dallas. You have the charters also allow for the type of students that may be dyslexic or have problems with math or other types of learning disabilities. The structure and curriculum focuses all on that. The misconception about charter schools is that they basically are exempt from any accountability from the state, and that's not really true. That they don't have the testing regimen that the public schools have, but they still have to meet certain standards to maintain their charter. So that's not exactly true, but they also do have the ability to say pick and choose from their students is a bit overdone, but it is essentially that. They can apply more accountability and discipline on a student that will not cooperate, more so than in a public setting, in a typical public school. If you have in a charter school, you have a student that just will not cooperate or behave, you can remove that student from the charter school without the degree of difficulty one would have in a public school. So there's that. And also, you do get to, in most cases, you can choose a little bit. Now, I know for a fact that many of these charter schools operate on a lottery basis. Many of these charter schools across the country they get received many more times the applicants than they do that number of seats they have available, and so you have the the applicants far outnumber the openings. And the thing about it is, almost all of these, not all, well, all, that's an exaggeration, but a great percentage, a high percentage of these applicants are minority parents, Black and Hispanic, from inner city schools. There was a DVD that we saw about a decade ago in one of our training called "Waiting for Supermans." My older peers will know what I'm talking about. It's a DVD that came out about some of the charter schools in New York City, which were greatly under attack by that idiot De Blasio, who thankfully has left office now. But this is pre-de Blasio, and we're talking about some of the charter schools, the in particular, the Success Academy in Harlem, and they had about 5 times the number of applicants, all of them African American, every one of them. 5 times the applicants for the number of seats available. And what the DVD was showing us is the process these parents are going through, and the absolute genuine heartbreak when their number wasn't picked in the lottery. And, they were going through these parents' travails and emotional struggles as they were preparing for the lottery. They were praying over it. They were hoping that, and then they'd all show up and they'd start calling out the numbers. And, only 1 in 5 are going to get selected. And it was just the heartbreak on the parents and the kids' face it was very moving. And so the idea that in some manner that the charter schools are elitist is not true at all. Now, can you have elite charter schools? Sure, you can have charter schools that are built around a particular talent or skill, such as like the performing arts, like we have in Fort Worth, or you can have it for math and science. You could have it for maybe for medical related education in high school. So if for those students have already determined they want to be in the medical profession and that's what they're going to study in college and things of that nature. So you can have that kind of selectivity. So, if you wanna call that elitism, I guess, but it's even then, you're gonna have to achieve certain standards. But many of these charter schools that are STEM schools, do have a process of selecting students with an aptitude for this topic. So that's the thing about charter schools. It does provide a greater degree of flexibility and adaptability to different types of educational circumstances, but, um the reason I think a lot of my peers are concerned about the, charter schools is because they're afraid of the funding situation, um, hurting public schools, and that's on the legislature. If they create a financing situation that does hurt the public schools in favor of charters, that's on them, and that's not good. There unfortunately, in our state legislature, too many, uh members of our legislature that view public education very poorly, and they see any kind of alternative as better than public education, and that's on a blanket statement, that's not true. But the thing about we have schools within our system, and everybody knows this, there's schools within our communities, particularly the big urban communities that are failing their students, and we need to have these options available to them, like a charter school. As far as vouchers, I would support vouchers under certain limited circumstances, and I'm not really that concerned about church state issues. If we had public or private school vouchers and somebody used that money for, say, an Islamic school, I'm not gonna fret about that. I mean, I'm not gonna get all worked about that if as long as, the Jewish and Christian schools can have the same option. But the thing is, I don't want to have vouchers available for parents in Southlake or Highland Park who have the wherewithal to do all this, and I don't want money be taken out of the public system or impacting the public system to make sure that somebody in Highland Park can send their kid to St. Mark's or somebody in Southlake can send their kid to Country Day. They don't need the help. I would limit the vouchers to those that go to schools that have demonstrated failure, and the income levels will be limited to a certain level, to a middle class or lower. I don't wanna pay vouchers so somebody that's living in the high dollar area of Fort Worth can send their kid to Trinity Valley. Nor do I want a voucher system that would exclude Southwest Christian because it's a Christian school. But as far as vouchers, if for those parents that live in some of the urban districts that are failing, we are failing them, but not giving them opportunities. This idea that the kids are geographically landlocked to these schools is an archaic idea. We need to have the ability of students and their parents to choose better for themselves than just hope that the local school they go to is acceptable or decent or safe. We need to have an ability that if we have a school in the DFW area that is failing their students, that school doesn't need to be around anymore. And the ability, the TEA, to shut down that school is long and arduous and difficult. It's like a 5-year process, if that. And we need to have a system where the parents and the kids say, I don't want to have my kid stuck in this school any longer just because we live within a geographic zone designed by the school board. Now, how a lot of schools are getting around that is through schools of choice, which we have at the elementary level and we have more or less school of choice here in Burleson. I'll put it that way. If there's programs you want at Centennial or at BHS, where you live is not the issue. Okay. Same thing with elementary schools or elementary schools here in Burleson. They are kind of attuned to certain skills and knowledge sets and whatever else. And you as a parent have an opportunity to try to get into those schools, even if you don't live in the quote zone in which you've been relegated to. Now, most parents that I know like their local schools. One of probably the strongest aspect of BISD is the elementary school system, and so they don't have a real problem with that. Same thing with most of BHS or Centennial parents I know. They're both good. You live in one, we'll go to that one. So it isn't like we have fruit basket turnover all the time, but in Fort Worth, they do have schools of choice. This school, Diamond Hill Jarvis or Polytech focuses on one aspect and whatever else. But the point is that to have a system that it goes back to the accountability issue I was talking about earlier. You're going to have a situation in which the schools know that if they don't perform, they lose students, and if they lose students, they lose jobs. And so that's the important thing to understand. Now, if that were in place, my feeling is, particularly in BISD, that you would not see a tremendous change in how things operate. I really don't, because most of the schools, if not all of them, or at least acceptable, some are very good. We have 2, 3 elementaries that are outstanding, and I think most of the high schools here are very good, and we have very good junior highs. I mean, I'm very pleased and proud with BISD, and I'm not just saying that as a former employee. I'm saying that as a parent that sent their kids through school and as a taxpayer. But um, my point would be that um, that I really just think about those kids in Fort Worth, and they're going to some of these substandard high schools or junior highs merely because that's where they live. And yeah, and not every kid is going to have the structured home to help them make a decision at age 14 that they need a better education. And that's I don't know how much a school system can change that. We can't magically change the home life of all our students. But for those that have somebody in their life, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, uncle, a guardian, somebody that can help them make that decision, they need to have the knowledge to know that they could choose a better for themselves and what's provided for them, and you can take it or leave it. And if, we graduate you without really a sufficient reading level, well, we got you across the stage, and that's all that matters. I was reading about one high school in Baltimore where the majority, and I mean like 85% of the students that graduate this high school could not read past the 3rd grade. I don't even know how to address that. How can you get to a diploma that you can't read? 85% had a 3rd grade reading level, and only about 10% were performing at junior high levels or math levels or reading and whatnot, yet they all got diplomas. And I don't know what they're gonna do with them, but that's Baltimore is one of the worst school districts there is. But and Burleson and Fort Worth are nothing like that, particularly a lot of the suburban districts, but that's still an issue. We need to have a situation that the charter idea, if nothing else, is applied to the public school systems. I don't have a real problem with charters. Um, I think I made that pretty clear. But I don't want charters to be maintained at the expense of public schools. They're not mutually exclusive. They can both be maintained, but I would like to see some of the accountability and the flexibility that the charters provide be given to public schools. Okay, Taylor, let's run the ads because I'm at a good stopping point, and I got a new one for Payne Beagle, so I'll got my ad copy right here. Okay, so thank you to Otto at our place. We talked yesterday. In fact, I'm going to see him later in the week. He's doing great. He says hello and whatnot, and I just love our place because it's a nice place to eat. It's a friendly atmosphere. It's relaxed. You get to see some of the people you know. It's kind of like, to me, it's almost like town central. For if you want to go and kind of be involved in the Burleson life, that's a good place to do it. So Our Place Restaurant on the highway in Allsbury, been there since 1986. Thank you, Otto. Also, yesterday, I was doing an errand with my son-in-law, and he loves cigars, and so I said, "Well, we got a few minutes," so we dropped by Wild Cigar, and I was given a tour by their manager, Jason, and we bought some cigars for Ben, he's helping me move some furniture, and it's a humidor is huge, and it's very nice, and from what the manager told me, they're doing pretty good, and I saw they look like they're doing good business, I definitely could vouch for the quality of the place, and so Valentine's is coming up, so check out that humidor and buy some cigars or a gift card at least for the one you love. You go by maybe in the evening time, have a drink, or in the afternoon, whatnot. They have a big Super Bowl party coming up, and uh, so you can go watch the big game. Taylor, you going to watch the Super Bowl?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, it's almost like a requirement in this country, isn't it? A
I feel
cultural
like it is. I
event.
feel like if I don't, I'll get shamed for it. So.
Well, I've missed a couple of Super Bowls, but I'm interested in this one because Tom Brady's not in it. That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And also, Cincinnati's an interesting story. But anyway, I digress. So if you want to watch
I
the
just wish
Super
the
Bowl,
Cowboys were there. Let's be honest.
it's never happened in your lifetime, or at least maybe like four
Yeah,
or
it
something like
has.
that. Okay. Well, the Cowboys, what can you say? Best run team in football. Anyway, the Wild Cigar is going to have a big party there, so you want to drop by for that. And also, I mentioned the gift cards and whatnot. Also, Antonio Basalo. Hope you're doing well. Proactive Payment Solutions. Hit proactivepaymentsolution.com, and I'll tell you how to make a better point of sales operation. If you don't have one, you can get one, and he'll help you which one fits your business the best, and which is the best rates, and which one has the best money offers and things of that nature. So all those things are good. So Antonio's a good guy too. He's got an interesting story. We're going to have him on the show pretty soon. We're just trying to work out a good time. He works for a living, so unlike me, who just kind of gets up and is brilliant. I mean, I can't help myself. ProactivePaymentSolution.com. Hit the link. Also, Payne Beagles at Beagles Technology Solutions. Hit www.beaglestech.com. He sent me this, and I want to read it to you. Whether you need help with the big things like turning your house into a smart home or transforming the technology in your business, or the little things like migrating your data to a new computer or setting up parental controls on your home network, Beagles Technology Solutions provides seamless integrated technology solutions to help you meet your goals through an on-site and remote support. Our services have also expanded to include aerial photography. He was telling me about this when he was on the show. He's going to get into drone work, aerial photography and videography. If you need aerial photos to help you with real estate advertising, roof inspections, construction progress, surveys, or any other projects, we can provide HDR and 4K content to help enhance your business. We were talking about that on the show. We had him on about 2 weeks ago, and he's talking about he was in the process of getting the proper certifications, and now he has them. So if you're a real estate agent, I can probably connect him to Shandy, I suppose. That'd be good. Or you have other types of businesses that need aerial photography. Now he's good to go, and he's a good guy. He'll get it done. So check out beaglestech.com, 817-944-3572. We're going to have his wife on, who works with various groups here in the Fort Worth area, about a week and a half from now. He may be on again, so we'll see him, I hope. www.beaglestech.com. All right. And also Tiffany. I was talking to her yesterday as well. I kind of keep up with the sponsors as best I can. And the ICE situation delayed the mailing of the magazine, but you should have it very, very soon. Local Life magazine will be in your mailbox if not already, but it was delayed a little, about 2 or 3 days, because of the lack of delivery and the lack of availability or ability to get it to the post office because of the roads, of course. And also, she's also a bit under the weather. So if you're a friend of hers, and she has a lot of them, give her a text or a email or a buzz just to see how she's doing. She's a little bit sickly today. She's not feeling great. So anyway, Local Life magazine will be there. If it's not in your box already, the localliftx.com is up and running, so you can check that out. And then lastly, Live 365, Burleson Radio, your voice, your station, playing your favorite hits right now. Okay. Let's go to about homeschooling. Here's the thing about homeschooling, my experience with it. When I first started teaching, my experience with homeschooling wasn't particularly great. I didn't really think a lot of it. A lot of the times in the 90s and early 2000s, the homeschooling situation was not built on better quality education, but was to remove their kids from a situation in which they wouldn't have to deal with certain things that they didn't want the parents didn't want their kids to deal with. Now, I understand that. I'm not going to criticize a parent for saying I don't want my child exposed to this, not this atmosphere at a high school, particularly at a high school level, when you got all sorts of stuff going on. You don't not everybody's there singing hymns on their way to class and such as that. And so they didn't want their kids exposed to that. I guess part of me didn't like the fact that the reason why they were pulling them out of school for homeschooling is they didn't like the curriculum, because we've talked about curriculum a ton, but and I don't really want to get into all that, but most teachers may want their students to think, but they're not really there to indoctrinate. Now, there are, maybe y'all could think of somebody in your educational background that did that. I've been accused of that before, which I kind of resent, because if I were indoctrinating my students to be conservative Republicans, boy, did I fail on that one. I've You look at my Facebook page, and man, where did you get that idea? But anyway, it's fine. I mean, most of my students think for themselves and whatnot, but um, I just had my suspicions about it, because I thought it was basically something that was done by, people that did not want their children to mix among society, all aspects of it. And I was thinking they were withdrawing their students and building this moat around them and a wall around them, and it would make it difficult for them to adjust in real life later. Well, this has been modified to a great degree in the last decade and a half or so. I have encountered a lot of homeschool students at DBU that function just fine. I've encountered a lot of parents, former students of mine in many cases, that have homeschooling their kids. It's kind of funny because they look at me like, "Well, don't be offended, Allard. I love you and all, but I know several of my former students that homeschool their kids, and they're doing a great job. One of them, one of my very favorite students, uh, her son's at A&M, and her 2 daughters, who are, seniors in the homeschooling curriculum, have both been accepted to A&M, and so, obviously, it worked for them. Also have a couple of, ex-students that are married together. I don't wanna mention names because they may not want all this advertised, but they're homeschooling their kids, and they're doing a fantastic job. But see, here's the thing about homeschooling that's made it easier. The Internet has made it easier, but it also has made it easier for people to use homeschooling as a dropout excuse. Okay. I don't like what's going on in school, so I'll just go online. Well, online does not mean sitting in front of the computer for 4 hours, grinding out stuff. Like, I was critical of Deion Sanders' Prime Prep. The homeschooling version of that isn't any better. If you really want to do homeschooling, you need a set curriculum. A lot of my Christian students use Abeka, but that's, there's options out there. And I've asked about them. Homeschooling works better now because of the internet, but it also can be a crutch. Homeschooling is not meant to basically withdraw your kids, plop them in front of a computer and say, okay, start doing these multiple guess questions and whatever else. Homeschooling, the whole purpose of it is to provide a more tailored, interactive educational experience. I have asked a couple of my kids, former students, or not kids, or parents, or adults, what am I saying? My former students, why are you doing homeschooling? In a non threatening way, of course. And they say basically, my child is very, very bright and he's being held back at school. And I don't want him to be bumped up 2 grades because he's not old enough for that. But here he can go at his own pace. Or I have a couple that say, well, uh, I had one student, ex-student, whose child was doing homeschool because of her health issues. But the key thing about homeschooling in every successful case is they had 1 or 2 parents that were there to make it work. They were holding their kids accountable. They had a legitimate curriculum. They were requiring their kids to do legitimate academic activities. The ones that had problems with homeschooling, particularly early in my career, were the ones that basically said, "I don't want my kid exposed to, bad language and crap going on in the men's boys' bathroom, or teachers that in an overcrowded classroom, blah blah blah." And so they would just, it was basically very rote work that they were doing, and they weren't getting the interactive education. But in the cases that where you had a parent, particularly a college educated parent, they didn't have to be trained as an educator, but they were college degreed parents. they were able to navigate the system better because one of them was there during the day to make it work. They to have 2 working parents and a homeschooled child that just is not gonna work because no matter how gifted the kid is, if he's 12 years old, he's gonna be playing video games and not working on his homework if no one's there to make sure that that kid's accountable. Yeah, and you know it and I know it. During the COVID, I think a lot of parents got an idea about the deficiencies of a purely online level education. And there are deficiencies because you don't have the interaction between students and teacher. I still, even at this state, I have online classes. That's fine, but I prefer in person, and I think students are better served in person. But still, when you have a homeschool operation, you must have at least one of the parents there that's going to be riding herd on the kids and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the parent must also be constantly on the search for new curriculum and new opportunities to use that curriculum. Okay. In other words, they can't just plop them in front of the computer, say, well, we got this program. It's, you log in and get after it. That's not going to do your kid any good. If you're going to do the homeschooling situation, you need to immerse that kid in all sorts of opportunities and activities. Now, again, since homeschooling has taken off in Texas in particular, you have co-ops, as I've been told they're called, of homeschool parents that will get together and take their kids on field trips, or provide social and athletic activities. By the way, it is the law in Texas that if you homeschool your kid, that doesn't mean he can't be in the band or football team, or your daughter can't dance with the drill team at the public school. Now that, I don't know how many people actually do that, but that's like Tim Tebow. That's how he went to homeschooling, but he played on the local high school football team and did pretty good, I'd imagine. But they do provide more opportunities, these co-ops. They also, when you get to the upper levels, this is another aspect of it. I, I like to think if I were doing homeschooling for my kids, I could teach them fine about government economics and history. I may be able to help them with literature, but I have a harder time with the grammar and the structure type stuff. But there's no way I could do the math and science. There's no way I could do chemistry or appropriately or biology. And from what I understand, these homeschool parents will get to high school, they have like these schools that have you could just join a class or 2, an individual class, as opposed to being enrolled for the entire day in curriculum. You can just go every other day for like an hour and a half, like Arlington Grace Prep or whatever else, or these other co-ops where a chemistry teacher will actually teach them chemistry. Or, an algebra or pre-cal teacher will actually teach them the math, and then they can do homeschooling for the other things. So, the homeschooling operation is much more sophisticated and much more accountable now. So, my opinion of homeschooling has changed pretty dramatically, but I do see the downsides. One of the downsides of homeschooling, I would say, is, are these kids getting socially acculturated, shall we say? Are they getting social skills? Do they know how to interact with other people, particularly other people different from themselves? That would be an issue, and a homeschooling parent could probably tell me about their social activities and things of that nature, or if they're involved in church, and that probably would solve some of that, but that's still something I would ask about. Are these kids, gonna be socially adept in dealing with the outside world once homeschooling experience stops? Are they gonna be, able to deal with people that are not like themselves? As far as other activities, like I mentioned, sports or band or whatever else, choir. Um, the homeschooling makes it more challenging to participate in those things, and those have very real value. I'm a big proponent of the fine arts and athletics because they provide an education that the classroom can't always provide. So, is that piece being taken care of? The non-curricular, extracurricular activities, is that being satisfied? So that would be my questions homeschooling. And again, not all curricula is the same. Some are excellent, some are poor. And you as a parent got to know which is which. So if to anybody that does homeschooling and has done it well, like the 2 examples I mentioned a few minutes ago, great. Their kids got good educations. From what I could tell, they're very well adjusted students, young people. They're going to good colleges. And so it worked for them. To somebody he says, "I don't want my kid exposed to, bad language or a certain type of literature or whatever else," and they wanna hide their kid away, and basically they just put them in a very routine, rote educational circumstance like online such, then I don't think they're doing the kids many favors. Um, because sooner or later, if you have any kind of post high school level educational opportunities, I don't mean just college, but even, you know, DeVry and all these other schools offer real valuable services. You're still going to need to have the ability to learn and the ability to get along with people. And if home parent student can actually do that, home parented student can actually do that, there you are. It works. It worked for them. But it's there's pitfalls with the homeschooling that I'm concerned about. And again, I guess to sum that up is that if you don't have an attentive parent who thinks they're doing their kid a favor by plopping them in front of the computer and say, log in and start grinding out mind numbing stuff online, then you're better off in another educational situation. Now, here's a oh, but I want to finish this up properly though. I would like to hear from homeschool parents, some responses. I'll try to address them maybe at the end of the show on Thursday. Thursday, I'm going to talk about something other than education. It's going to talk about some of the stuff going on in Washington that's very concerning, but I'll mention that then. But I'd like to hear some responses. So if you're a homeschool parent or know of one, tell me your experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. Same thing with charter and same thing with private, anything like that. Now, I was asked, does money equal better performance? The answer is not really. That's not the case. If you paid a mediocre teacher $1,500 more a month, would that become a better teacher? The answer is no. The problem with the educational system in terms of pay is that you can have a great teacher and a poor teacher side by side, but if they both have the same credentials and the same years of experience, they're going to get paid the same, and that's a real demoralizing factor. You have these teachers that are coming in early and staying late and working hard, and they're getting paid the same as somebody right next door who shows up just barely on time and hands out the worksheets. So that's but so more money does not necessarily mean better performance overall, but it would mean if you paid the better teachers more money, it'd be more incentivizing for other people to get into the profession, and it'd be more incentivizing for the districts to get rid of the teachers that aren't performing. Now, I was also asked, how do you evaluate these teachers appropriately and fairly? Well, all of us that are in the educational system were evaluated by at least once a semester or once a year if you were a certain length of time by an administrator. Come in, they check these boxes, they write down some comments, you'd have a conversation later, and it was part of your file. But the truth of the matter is, students know who the good teachers are. Parents know who the good teachers are, and fellow teachers know who the good teachers are. I don't know how you can quantify that into a way of evaluating teachers without getting into all sorts of other issues about, you know, your personal connections with administration or family connections or, and particularly in a lot of these smaller districts, small town districts, you have situations where, somebody's been there forever and there's no way to get rid of this teacher because she's, been there since the 30s and whatever else. Um, but it's very, very difficult, but like I said, those groups, the teachers, the parents, and the kids know who the good and the bad teachers are. I was asked, "Well, why don't they just do it, like, based on test scores?" Well, that's not possible, and the reason why is I, as a teacher, got my students, 3rd period students, because of the way the schedule worked out, not because I chose them. This is the comparison to sports teams is not apt or appropriate because a coach has the ability to play or not play players or actually cut people from the team. I had none of those options available to me as a teacher. My 3rd period, got my 32 kids. I got them because that's the way the schedule worked out, and I couldn't say, "Well, you're not performing, you're not performing, you're not performing, so get out. You're not gonna be on the team." I didn't have that opportunity. Or no, I don't think teachers really should have that anyway. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying that's not an appropriate comparison between athletic teams or choir or band or whatever else where performance gets you certain things and lack of performance, there's a price to be paid. And in the academic setting, we get what we get. So to base it on tests base it on test with you're asking me to, as a teacher, to go and perform as, to use the team analogy further, to go and win the district with whatever players that just showed up, and I don't have any ability to do anything about who showed up and whatnot. So to say, well, your test scores are good, bad, or indifferent, that's how we're going to base your money. We don't get to choose our students. And if that were the situation, I promise you would have teachers, and I've seen it happen, would have teachers that have connections with the counseling office or with the administration that would find a reason to get rid of these 2 or 3 troublemaking students and put them in another teacher's class, and therefore it helps their scores. And by definition, it hurts a colleague's scores. But I could think of one woman in particular whose name I shall not mention because I can't say it without spitting, but she was a former administrator that was known for doing this, and it galled me sore, um, to have, somebody who would do this, to their colleagues and then try to hold me accountable. This is many, many years ago, so you probably won't know who I'm talking about, and that's fine. But the point is that the idea is that, okay, your test scores are gonna base on your bonuses. I wouldn't be able to manipulate that any other way than just to grind them for the test. The only way I get better scores with the students I have is just do nothing but grind them for a preparation for a test. And any kind of academic exercise, endeavor, or whatever would be totally pointless because if it don't help with the test, we're not gonna talk about it, because if I don't do well on the test, I don't get paid, and that's the incentive that's a very negative incentive. So another okay, and about the evaluations. Well, um, we don't have the ability with the staff we have, administrative staff, to go and evaluate the teachers constantly. That's why for veteran teachers like me, I usually got it once a year. Some of the new teachers twice a year. But we had 3 vice principals, and we had a staff of maybe 160, and that's just a tiny part of the administrator's job is evaluating teachers. I mean, you gotta deal with discipline, you gotta deal with parents, you gotta deal with, the hallway, you gotta, blah, 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 blah. And so, it's not like that's all they do. And so some of the bigger districts had professional evaluators. But what was happening on the evaluations was that even though some of these school districts are ranked as substandard, or some of the schools are ranked as substandard, almost all the teachers are ranked as above average or better, and they were all getting paid. So it really wasn't working. This was in Dallas. They tried that. In Dallas, it was amazing. You had like 80% of the teachers were above average, but several of the schools were ranked non-performing. So the answer to your question, King of Kiowa County, who asked me this question, it's not easily answered. The the, the only thing I say about money is paying teachers more helps the good better teachers feel like that they're getting recognized for their services and their time, but paying poor teachers more is just making the problem worse. And so the trying to thread that needle is trying to how do you get money to the better teachers? And that's not easily done. Second of all, as far as other we talk about more money in the system, really, teacher pay is what it is. It's a lot better than it used to be, okay? Teacher pay is what it is. I never really complained about the pay. The insurance, it could have been a lot better. That's one thing I wish would be better, was the insurance, because the insurance is not good for most districts. We don't have a statewide insurance plan. It's district by district, and I've never understood that. My insurance went down by half when I retired and got into TRS. But I would if I had more money to spend, I would not spend it on downtown curriculum instructors or somebody, these other jobs that have descriptions that I don't really even know what they do. If I had more money, I'd put it on the campus level, maybe add another vice principal, maybe add another counselor, maybe add enough counseling that they can actually counsel and do more than just schedule make, making schedules or test giving. I would add, definitely more teachers to lower the class numbers. That's where the money needs to be spent. As far as the pay, nobody who works for somebody else is overpaid. Everybody I know thinks they're underpaid. Okay, that's fine, but the money needs to be spent on the campus level, not in increasing administrative staff or increasing programs or diverting into these new methods, new paradigms that cost tons of money. Before we get into the new paradigms on these new ideas and new ways of organizing curriculum and new ways of evaluating people and students, we need to do what we're assigned to do first better. And so we need smaller classrooms. Therefore, we need more teachers. We need better discipline. Therefore, we need more administrative staff on the campus. We need to have resources available for the students who really need it in terms of emotional counseling. That's where the money needs to be spent, and the pay will take care of itself. So, I hope that answers the question. I don't really have a black and white answer for that, and that's fine. But kind of reiterate what I'm talking about. I believe a properly run public system works, but we have to all make it work. The parents, the teachers, the community, and yes, the students have to make it work. If one factor is not making it work, then it's going to be much more difficult. The public school systems need the same level of public involvement, parent involvement, and student accountability that these other alternatives provide. We need rigor in the classroom, real rigor. We need real accountability. We need discipline in the halls. We need discipline in the back of the classroom. And when we send somebody to the office, there's going to be dread, not smirks. We need to have a situation where if a student doesn't do the work, they pay the price. We're not going to pass them just because they're pretty and good looking. All right. We need to have a situation where the students know that if they don't do what's asked of them, there's a price to be paid. If the teachers don't do what's asked of them, there's a price to be paid. If the administrators don't do it from the top on down, there's a price to be paid. And if the parents don't do their job, they bear the burdens. That's what I would sum up our system in one word is accountability. That's what we need. All right. I hope I was fairly even keeled on the alternatives. But if you want to message me or whatever else, I'd appreciate it very much. This will be on the Apple, Spotify tomorrow. The other one, is that on yet or about to be?
It should be up right now.
Okay. All right. Part 1's up on Apple and Spotify. Also, it's on Facebook. This is on Facebook, and I'm going to notify y'all on Facebook. Not Facebook. I'm sorry. YouTube is what I meant. I get them confused. All these technologies, they're overcrowding my brain.
We're all over the place.
Yeah, all over the place. YouTube and Facebook and Spotify. Maybe
In your brain.
In your brain. Yeah, maybe I'll replace Joe Rogan. Who knows?
Maybe.
Nah, I don't know.
Joe Rogan ain't got nothing on Mr. Allard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't really understand all the controversy. I understand some of his opinions have rubbed people the wrong way, but that's their problem. I don't really care. Just as long as y'all are my faithful listening audience. So share this with your friends. And we'll see y'all on Thursday. We're going to talk about more Washington hair pulling. Okay. We'll see you then. Oh, wait.
I was going to say.
All right.
We need to talk about our sponsors.
Yes. I was thinking, what? And I was reading something. I'm sorry. Somebody did send a comment right during the show, and I was kind of glancing at that. And there you go. Sorry, Daniel. Let's start over with the CrossFit Burleson. Oh boy, live podcasting. It's great, isn't it? Thank you, CrossFit Burleson. Thank you, Daniel, for what you do. CrossFitBurleson.com. Check out the page for the memberships and plans. Thank you, Shandy, the 817 Live page. And also, if you're looking to move around this area, she's the one to talk to. She's closing a couple houses this week, so she's very busy. Thank you, Shandy. Thank you, Rex, over in Cleveland at the Russell Wealth Group. MyFinancialBox.com. Hit the link and get to know him. Make an appointment, get the visit. Also, thank you to Kimmy over at Optavia. I'll see you tomorrow, 817-789-1622. See you at the BNI meeting. She'll help you with your lifestyle plans and your dietary plans, things of that nature. Also, see Gayla tomorrow at BNI with Southern Gym. It's Valentine's coming up, so be sure you're looking for something for your sweetheart over there. She could help you with new jewelry, help you with designs, with cleaning over on the third floor of the Windmiller building off Hidden Creek. Also, thank you to Otto, of course, the king of Burleson. Our place at Burleson on Highway and Ellsbury, been there since 1986. Go there for the chicken fried steak. It's really good. So he uses the good stuff when he makes his chicken fried steak. So there you are. Thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. Like I said, I was there yesterday. It's a great place to go. Get yourself a decent cigar, a decent drink. Super Bowl Sunday's coming up, so put that on your schedule. Thank you to Antonio Basallo at Proactive, say it right, dummy, proactivepaymentsolution.com, and can help you with point of sales operations. So check out Proactive Payment Solutions, and it'll save you some money. Also, Payne Beagles over at Beagles Tech, like I said earlier, he's here to turn your house into a smart home or transforming the technology into business. Also, migrating data to a new computer and setting up parental controls. I guess we all need that, even now. So, and also, you'd like to know about his new service about expanding to include aerial photography and videography. So, if you're in real estate or roofing or whatever else, he can help you with that. So, www.beaglestech.com or 817-944-3572. I'll have his wife on the show pretty soon because she's involved in a nonprofit in Fort Worth that's very, very prominent and very useful. Also, thank you to Tiffany over Local Life. Get better soon. You should have your publication this week. Like I said, the weather and whatnot kind of delayed it a couple of days. Plus, give her a call and tell her you're thinking of her because she's not feeling great today. So she's a little under the weather and she may be under the weather for a little while. So give her a holler and let her know that you're thinking of her. And also, Live 365, your voice, your station. It's playing great music right as we speak. I never miss it. Anyway, now we can go. Okay. All right. And I'll see you on Thursday.